I think that I needed to do every single mistake that I needed to do to get to the point where I was ready to change my life. I call it a soul crisis. And I really wanted to do something. I had my dream job. There, I felt like there was no reason for me not to take a look at myself and try to change myself and be happy. I really just wanted to be happy.
It's time for the Share Recovery Podcast, where we bring you amazing life-changing success stories from addicts and alcoholics all over the world who share their inspiring journey in recovery. And now, here's your host,
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of TSP, the Share Podcast. And today we have Sunny Buick joining us on the show today. Sunny is originally from the U.S. and Canada, but currently lives in Paris, France as a tattoo artist. She has 17 years clean and sober, and she's here to share her amazing experience, strength, and hope with us today. She's got an amazing story, and she's absolutely adorable. I think you guys are going to love her as much as I do. So let's dive into Sunny's story. But first, a little Share Podcast news. Okay, guys, first of all, thanks so much for everyone who has helped support the Share Podcast. And for those of you listening who would like to know how you can help support the Share Podcast, let me give you a couple of ideas. First of all, the most important one, which is absolutely free, is to leave a rating and review on iTunes. iTunes single-handedly is one of the most powerful ways for people to find the Share Podcast. So to make it easy for you guys, what I've done is I've put buttons on the website, www.thesharepodcast.com. Go there on the right-hand side. The very first button reads, subscribe on iTunes. Click on that button. It's going to send you directly to the iTunes podcast app. And from there, you'll click subscribe and then go to the section that says rate and review. And please leave us a 5-star rating. There's no question about it. iTunes is one of the best ways for our listeners to find the Share Podcast, especially when they're searching for it on Google. If you don't have an iPhone, then go to Stitcher Radio. It's the banner right underneath the subscribe on iTunes. Click on that and do the exact same thing. Subscribe and then leave a 5-star rating and review. There's no question about it. This is the best way for you to show your support. I also want to thank all the listeners who have been clicking on the Amazon banner ad. Folks, for those of you wondering what's another fantastic way to support the show is by clicking on that banner before you shop on Amazon. You're going to shop on Amazon anyway. It's not going to cost you 1 penny more, and it kicks back some commission to the Share Podcast. We've already seen a dramatic increase in commission since we added the banner ad. So thanks again, guys. It's helping so much. And as far as being of service, you can also go to the website and click on the Join the Facebook Private Group banner. It'll take you right to the Facebook private group where you can request to be added and do some service. There's newcomers in there that are posting daily, old-timers sharing experience, strength, and hope. It's an absolutely beautiful way to contribute to your own recovery as well as to those in the community. So plug yourself in, get into that private Facebook group. It's absolutely thriving. And again, it's a wonderful way for everyone to be of service. And of course, I want to give a big thank you to all of the listeners who have continued to give donations every month. Thank you guys so much for your generous donations. And for those of you that would like to contribute and help grow and support the Share Podcast financially, you can go to the website, click on the Donate with PayPal button, and it'll take you to the page where you can make your donation. And for those of you that use Sober Grid or are looking for an app on their phone where you can find meetings, have a sobriety calculator, connect privately with members of your local recovery community, or when you travel, connect with members in recovery in order to find a meeting, then you might as well join the private alumni group for Share Podcast listeners. So go into the Sober Grid menu once you've registered. Scroll down to where it says Alumni Group, click on Add Group, and type in SHAIR, and the Share Podcast Alumni Group will pop right up. And finally, I want to give credit to the Share Podcast team that is instrumental in producing the Share Podcast. Zinzi Gugu, and Evelyn E., who handle the audio editing for each podcast episode, Omar Hernandez, that does all the social media cover art, and Krista Wojo, who handles all of our social media marketing. Without this amazing team, there's no way I could have continued to produce the podcast every week. Thank you, guys. I couldn't do this without you. So now a quick message from our sponsor and on to the show. Sober Nation is the largest online recovery community and treatment resource center. They provide treatment resources to those struggling with addiction, as well as to the family members who are caught in the crossfire. On top of that, Sober Nation is a huge community of good people who share their experience with each other. They have informative content, recovery and addiction news, as well as an entire clothing line which helps expand the culture of recovery. They can easily be found at www.sobernation.com. Sober Nation is putting recovery on the map. And finally, would you like to receive the most popular AA daily devotions free in one distribution? Transitions Daily delivers daily devotions from the 24 hours a day, AA Thought for the Day, Daily Reflections, Big Book Quote, Just for Today, As Bill Sees It, plus more. You can get our distribution daily via email, private Facebook group, or Twitter. Go to dailyaaemails.com for more information. And don't forget to share dailyaaemails.com with friends in meetings and with sponsees in recovery. Now back to the show. Hey folks, today we have Sunny Buick joining us on the Share podcast. Sunny was born in Canada, and shortly thereafter, her parents moved to San Francisco, and now she lives in beautiful Paris, France, as a tattoo artist. She is got one heck of a story, especially starting from birth. So Sunny, thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you on the show. How are you feeling?
A little nervous. This is the first time I've been asked to share my story. Even though I have 17 years of sobriety, I managed to avoid sharing my story at a meeting.
Well, it goes to show you that at some point you got to come clean.
I'm glad for this opportunity. I wasn't going to say no. This is going to be good for me, I think.
Oh, this is great. I'm very excited to have you. Let's dive right into your story, Sunny, because we've been talking right before the interview, and all kinds of interesting stuff has been popping up. But first, tell us a little bit about what your normal daily routine is like. I know you're a tattoo artist, so how do you combine, what you do and recovery?
Okay. I'm really lucky that I get up early in the morning and I don't have to be at work until 2 in the afternoon.
Nice.
So I have a lot of time to myself in the mornings to work and be meditative. And my husband is off really. He goes really early to work. So I don't think I could function without having this quiet time to myself in my couple, at least. And also with my work and with my recovery of doing sports is really, really important. I don't have any choice. I have back problems because of tattooing. So I go twice a week to the swimming pool. And when I'm doing really good, add 1 day of running to that. And I try to do some stretching and stuff. And I'm lucky in France. I get to have massages paid for by my healthcare.
Nice.
So that's nice. That all keeps me sane. I do a lot of reading, and I think that the most stuff that I'm doing right now for my spirituality is actually sharing and being of service to my clients, because I'm actually kind of really in a lazy mode right now. I would like to be meditating every day. That's really, really good for me, but I'm not at the moment. Maybe tomorrow I'll start again.
Listen, every day you can start brand new. It's never too late. Yesterday I got up and I meditated. That is something I'm able to do pretty regularly, pretty consistently. But I was having shoulder problems yesterday, and my wife's a yoga instructor, so there's always yoga videos, right? So I said, honey, I'm going to go in the studio and I'm going to do a little bit of yoga. And of course I felt so much better right afterwards, right? So, but I'm not going to claim to be, a yogi, right? Like every once in a while, I'm going to jump in there, do a little bit of yoga and remind myself that, man, if I did this more consistently, I'm going to feel better. But I'm certainly, there was a time in my life where if I didn't do it perfectly every single time, then forget it. I'm just not going to do it.
No, you can't be too hard on yourself. You got to kind of like know your limits and also try to push yourself at the same time and just keep on trying to be a better person every day.
Absolutely. How long when you do meditate, how long do you roughly meditate?
20 minutes is my, I put a little timer on and I'll do 20 minutes.
That's exactly what I do. And thinking, and you think about it, it's like 20 minutes out of my day. What is that? Right?
I should do 10 minutes because if I can get 10 minutes in there, not 20 minutes, then I probably would do it every day. But I don't know. Yeah, I like 20 minutes.
Yeah, I like 20 minutes too. And as far as your recovery routine, are you able to get to lots of meetings or what's that look like on a weekly basis?
Well, my story with the meetings is I just started going back to meetings last year. I went 10 years here in Paris without going to meetings because when I first arrived here, I went to a couple meetings and I was full of resentment that they weren't as cool and hip as the meetings in San Francisco. I was really like, these guys are nerds. They're so boring. And so I held on to like a resentment for a long time. And so I went back. Unfortunately, for me to get to an English-speaking meeting, it takes 3 hours out of my day. I'm really going sporadically at the moment. And I'm thinking that maybe I'll try a French-speaking meeting that's closer to my house so that I can really be more, it's complicated, I would feel more comfortable in English-speaking meeting, but we'll give it a try with the French-speaking meeting, see if I can get more regular with it.
Well, you speak French, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the advantage of having two languages that you could choose, and maybe there is a much cooler meeting in French, but I think it's just a matter of mindset anyway. I don't know. I mean, I live in Costa Rica. I've been here for 17 years, and I won't go to the Spanish speaking meetings because I can't connect in there. But fortunately, I
feel like I might feel a little, I won't be understood 100%, or I feel like I would be even more naked with my strange accent. I don't know. I don't know what it is that keeps me from going to French-speaking meetings. I just feel more comfortable in the English-speaking meeting.
Yeah, I just had one of those flashes, the little cliches that pop in your head. You can't save your ass and your face at the same time. So I have to remind myself of that too. Well, along with your meditative practice and now you're going back to meetings, is there another way that you maintain your spiritual condition, your conscious contact with the higher power?
Well, when I was first getting sober, I was so good about my spirituality, and I'll tell you about that later. I had a really great discipline, and I was really, really good for 3 or 4 years there. And I'm really lucky. My higher power has totally taken the desire to drink and to smoke pot away from me. And I haven't found like a spiritual group here in France either. So it's kind of, I'm on my own with the spirituality. I pray, I speak to my higher power. I do kind of like little juju, kind of like spells and stuff like that to feel my own power. But mainly, I think that I'm having spiritual connection with the clients, just talking with clients every day, sharing my story. That's where I really am feeling my spirituality today. Maybe when I'm also doing sports or when I'm painting or something like this, I feel some therapy and some connection. But I've kind of fallen out of a real discipline, and I really would like to get back to it because it's great. It was really great for me. I haven't maybe done as much growth as I did in those first few years.
No, I hear you. But the cool thing is that just like anything else, whether you're in a meeting or not, when you're connecting with another human being, there is a presence of a higher power, especially if the theme or the discussion that you guys are going into is something a little bit more deep. So many of us, depending on the social setting, or the people that we're around, it's a lot, that's superficial bullshit. When you're getting tattooed, that's pretty personal, right?
Yeah.
And you got to get this person through some painful moments, depending on where you're giving them the tattoo. So there's that opportunity to connect on a different level. And I think that's why you feel that spirituality, because I think like other practices, your tattoo artist is probably somebody that while you're there becomes a very intimate person in your life.
Yes. And I hope I can do a little bit of magic and a little bit of therapy. At the same time, I try to get people to open up about what's happening with them and give some advice and be, it's kind of like between a shaman, a therapist, a hairdresser, in the fact that I'm making the body more beautiful, it's a lot of different hats that I'm wearing.
Yeah, no, for sure. And people come in and in many cases, they want a particular tattoo because it stands for something. So it's something that's very personal and intimate for them. So obviously they have to convey that to you so you understand the meaning behind it and you can put that into the work. So that's where, you get that opportunity to get really close to your clients.
Yeah, I'm pretty intuitive. Like I know when something's not right, and I'll start probing a little bit.
Nice. I like that. I love it. I'm going to start probing now myself. So,
Okay.
So Sunny, how much clean time do you have and when is your anniversary date?
I have 17 years. My anniversary date is September 19th, 1998.
Wow. Whew. Long time. I love it. And Sunny, how old were you the first time you drank or used drugs? And more importantly, how did they make you feel?
I was 15. I think alcohol came first, or maybe even some cigarettes. It made me, my mother is an alcoholic, and so I saw the behavior. I saw how to do it. And it made me feel grown up. It also made me feel numb. I think I'm an ultra-sensitive person. That's what makes me an artist. And a lot of shit happened to me when I was young. And so I wanted to give it a try. I was like, maybe I'll give this debauchery thing a try. And, I guess it felt good. Yeah, I felt grown up.
Beautiful. All right, you're warmed up, Sunny. All right, so it's time for me to turn this show over to you. It's time for you to share your story, the battle against drugs and alcohol, the wreckage it caused in your life, when you hit rock bottom, and finally your journey into recovery up until today. And Sunny, for you, I want you to start us off real young. Take us back to Canada and when you were born, and let's start from there. So Sunny, take it away.
Okay, so my mom and her boyfriend, after the Kennedys were assassinated, thought that America was going to hell in a handbasket, and they kind of wanted to get out of the U.S., and they found a piece of property for sale up in Canada, $400, and they moved up there, and they built their own house, and I was born in a cabin in the woods. And my father is not actually the person that my mom went up to Canada with. But by the time I was born, and he helped deliver me, he ended up on the birth certificate saying that he would take the responsibility of being my father. But my mom took off about maybe less than 2 years later.
Wow.
I was just a little baby. So I grew up all over California. I think we lived in Portland. We lived in Santa Cruz, San Jose, Lafayette, all kinds of places. My mom, in her alcoholism, she would have long periods of sobriety, like 4 or 5 years, and then she would think that she could drink again. And there would be episodes where she would have periods of drinking. She put our life in danger many times. I've been left in hotel rooms while she went to bars. She was very promiscuous when she was drinking. She would bring men to the home. So I'm raised by this single mother who was kind of irresponsible and probably has a slight mental illness, but she's a functional crazy person.
Sounds like
which
it.
is alcoholism, but I think there's something more. But I'd love to diagnose her, but I cannot. That's not my inventory. But I think that the horror that I saw is a big part of my story. It was really frightening. I mean, we really could have seriously been killed by her or by these men that she brought over several times. We moved and moved and moved. And finally, at age 15, when I'm beginning high school, we're in San Francisco, and I really was in love with this town. I felt like this is it. This is my home. I feel like I can be me here. And I really, really liked it. And a lot of stuff happened that year when I was 15. You know, I started using. I also met some artists who were talking about how a friend of theirs started tattooing, and that was a good way for an artist to make money doing their art. Because I'd already been told that, you know, you can't make a living as an artist. Not the best career choice. And I don't know, like bells and whistles went off in my head. I was just like, tattoo artist. Yeah. Oh my God. Like, that's so humbling. I would draw on people and they would carry it around the rest of their lives. And then when they die, it's just gone, you know, like, for some reason, I was kind of maybe really gothic, and I thought that was cool because today I don't want my paintings to end up in garage sales. You know, I want my paintings to end up in a museum. I can't imagine like someone just throwing away one of my babies that I spent so much time on. But yeah, at that moment, I was like, yeah, this impermanent art, you know, but so personal and so like so magic. And so I decided at 15 that I wanted to be a tattoo artist, and it took another 10 years before I found my way. Oh, at 15, my mom and I were really fighting a lot. She was going through menopause. I was going through crazy hormones. Right. We did not understand each other at all. And she really didn't want the responsibility. I think she had a kid, you know, just to have a companion, you know. And so she said, I'm going to get your own apartment. You know, I met this boy. It was my first boyfriend. And she's like, I'm going to get you guys an apartment. So she set us up in an apartment. And then I would just like, I was partying and I got out of high school. I like passed the GED. So I didn't have to go to high school anymore. I started going to City College. And then I broke up with that boyfriend. And I got into a roommate situation where the upstairs roommate was learning to tattoo. Got it. So he was a tattoo apprentice. He was 8 years older than me. And we all started doing a lot of speed together. And he was the catalyst for that. Curiously enough, he was an alcoholic that had stopped drinking and switched alcohol for speed. Wow, great choice. Yeah, we would do crazy stuff like wouldn't sleep for 3 days and like have bouts of paranoia and stuff like that. And so I did speed every day for at least a year. I thought it was great. I was skinny. I was less cared what people thought. I was more confident. I didn't really feel like I needed anybody except for speed. And I would drink. I drank, I think, when I realized when I was in love with him, I think I got really, really drunk because I didn't think that he liked me at all. I thought we were just friends. And eventually we got intimate, but I was crazy in love with this guy. I mean, I'm crazy in love with this person, but he didn't feel the same way about me. He never kissed me on the mouth. And I finally broke up with him. And I think it was just survival instinct. I think I must have just realized that if I continue down this path, I'm going to end up dead. And I continued to do speed for just a couple months after that breakup. And then I met somebody else who did not like the fact that I did drugs. Or did not like the fact that I snorted powders because we smoked pots together and drank a lot. But that was like forbidden. So I stopped that just to make this boy happy. Right. And And I was pretty proud of my decision to stop doing speed. I saw how destructive it was, and how nasty it was. And but then I continued to drink. I was getting into the rockabilly scene in San Francisco, and in the rockabilly scene, alcohol is a really very important. Everybody's drinking. That's you don't not drink.
The rockabilly scene, if I can remember, it's a lot of like it's dancing and that
music, 50s cars, you know.
Yeah, the 50s, the whole 50s styling, right? Where, you know, kind of probably that whole look where, you know, the rolled up jeans and what kind of dancing is it?
Swing dancing.
Swing dancing. There it is. That's what I was looking for. Thank you. All right, I'm there now.
Yeah, so alcohol plays a big part in that whole subgenre. While I'm going through college, I get myself together again, and I'm going to college because I wasn't going to be I wasn't going to be a high school dropout. I really got out of high school because I couldn't stand it, but I'm a proud person. I wanted to have a college degree to prove that I'm not stupid, you know? So,
right.
So I had a lot of fun in college. I was going out every weekend to music shows and drinking a lot and going to house parties and stuff like that, and had a fake ID, was going out before I was 21. And I would sometimes drink alone to Patsy Cline, I like this kind of melancholy image of self-destruction.
Totally.
But with my drinking, I would stop from time to time and try to control it. But the thing is when I drank, I could never just have one or two beers. It's just to be social. I always drank to excess and I would get sick. And I always, always, always regretted the person I became. The next day I would always be just things I said, things I did. I was so ashamed because because my personality really changes with alcohol. I get aggressive. So a lot of times I would be fighting with my boyfriend, little resentments that came up through the week that I would just let go. When I had alcohol in me, I would be just, you said that, you did this, no, and a lot of paranoia and a lot of, these guys these weren't the best choices of men either.
Right.
That probably was had a lot to do with it. But I would really pick fights. I would pick fights with other people, and I would be if I wasn't so drunk, I'd kick your ass. This kind of stuff. It never really came to fisticuffs, but I like to play a badass or. I don't know, really combative. I really wanted to fight, when I was drunk. I never did, but I really wanted to. And yeah, I think that I knew that alcohol was bad news. Anyway, I ended up marrying my drinking buddy when I was 22. And I knew that he was a pathological liar. I would already when I was friends with him, I already had an experience of him lying, fabricating stories. But I married him, and we would, he had a great record collection, and we would drink Jack and Coke and listen to old blues records or old jazz records. And he lived in an antique store, and his boss was a gay guy that was probably in love with him. And so we lived with this guy, and that was really hell, because this guy eventually starts dying of cancer. And it was a huge antique store. So when, he closed down at night, you have the whole place to yourself and all these antiques and all these records. But as he's dying, I didn't handle it very well because he was kind of a nasty guy. And my husband was really kind of manipulative. He would always talk about how this guy was mean to him. And I'd end up standing up for him. But I learned later that this was a really manipulative thing on his part, that that everybody he comes in contact ends up sticking up for him. Your
husband.
The end, yeah, the man that I married, and so this guy's dying, and I didn't handle it very well. I said some nasty things. I didn't know how to handle living with someone who was dying. It was hard, and
Right.
the relationship was complicated. So he dies. We inherit, or my husband inherits the antique store.
Wow.
Soon after, we signed a lease for its $5,000 a month rent, and my husband, in the first year, he spent all the profits that he would get. He would spend them on bicycles. He spent $8,000 on vintage bicycles in the first 6 months or something, and he couldn't handle the employees. He wasn't a disciplinarian, and the most important thing is that he wasn't going out and buying antiques like his boss was. He didn't like that part of the business, so he was really running the business into the ground. And at the end of 1 year, we couldn't pay the rent anymore, and there was no stock in the antique store. The stock had gone down to the stuff that nobody wanted. It was also there was a rent crisis in San Francisco, and nobody was buying furniture. And so we were like, shit, we have this lease, and we could be in for $60,000. And he starts using speed and starts lying to me. And I'm pretty sure he's probably cheating on me at this point, because I feel like a woman being cheated on.
Right.
He's lying, and that's nothing new. He's been lying the whole time. So then my bottom was that I was at friend's house, and I was just at work too. Things were getting complicated. I knew it was me. I wasn't getting along with my coworkers, and they considered me kind of a little goody two shoes. And I think they were jealous because I was really ambitious and a little bit competitive. So I was unhappy at work and at home. I was really, really unhappy. And I was at friend's house, and I was telling them about this. And then I asked them to call me a cab, and they called me a cab. And when I got downstairs, the cab was already there. And he said, are you Gabriella? And I was like, yeah.
Uh-oh.
I guess else at the building had called, and I had just said, yeah, too fast. And I got in the car. And it wasn't the name wasn't Gabriella, but it was something like that. And he goes on and on about what a beautiful name that is, and da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And then he said something gypsy. And I was like, huh? Okay, that freaked me out. All of a sudden I had shivers running down my spine. I was like, yeah, that would be a nice name. I like that name. And for some reason we talked about my mother too. And I said something about my mother, and he's like, oh, you need to heal your relationship with your mother. You need to get that you need to figure out what's the matter, and you need to get on that. And I was like, what are you talking about? So he drops me off in front of my house, and I pay him, and I'm trying to get out of there as fast as possible. He gets out of the cab, and he's following me. And he's like, no, I'm serious. I know what I'm talking about. I see people all the time. You need to deal with this issue you have with your mother. And I was like, okay, guy, leave me alone. And I get into the house, and I was like, oh my God. And I really was freaking out. I was like, I realized later that he was kind of like a guardian angel, and he'd come and he'd given me a message, right?
Yeah.
And that night, my husband doesn't come home at all. So that was kind of like I knew my marriage was falling apart. And in the next few days, we fought a lot. And I left. I went to go stay with a girlfriend. And I decided I'm not going to smoke pot, and I'm not going to drink for 48 hours. And then I'm going to make an appointment with a psychotherapist. I had Kaiser. So I make an appointment, and I go and I talk to her, and I tell her everything. And she's like, well, you don't need to decide right now if you're going to get a divorce or not. Don't need to decide today. She says, but I think this idea of not drinking and not smoking pot is a good idea. You should continue like that. And she said, and also, I don't know if you have money to pay for psychotherapy. She said a good psychotherapy that's nearly free would be to go to AA meetings. And I was like, okay, I'll try that.
Oh, man.
And, I'd already been to AA meetings with my mom when I was a little girl. So I knew what it was. But then I go to these AA meetings and it's a riot. It's like stand-up comedy, like these old punkers, young punkers, people with great stories. I was like, this is awesome. So I just keep on doing it. And then my marriage falls apart because he's like, oh, you're not going to drink and smoke pot with me, but it was already falling apart. But that really that sealed the deal.
Right.
That was basically what our relationship was based on was that, that's a divorce is really, really hard. I had a lot of shame, and it took me a while to get over that. My higher power got me another roommate in a great situation. I kept on going to meetings. I started going to a Christian church. I started also going to the Zen center and meditating. I was just gung ho, and I was doing a lot of work on myself. And suddenly things got better at work, and my life started going a lot better. Things weren't chaotic anymore. I'd stopped losing my shit and having crises and stuff. Things started going so much better. I was meditating every day and reading spiritual books every day, and twice a week going to, the Zen center and this Christian church.
You're getting sober. You're just getting sober. This is the best part right now.
I was so freaking high on that. I was like, this is 10 times better than the drugs because there's no consequence. There's no come down. Remember doing speed and you stay up for 3 days because you don't want to come down. The come down's so depressing. You want to slit your wrist. And, just being addicted to this new thing, going to meetings and being spiritual, there was this high that there was no come down. There was no consequences. It was all good. It was all positive. I felt great.
And when you talk about work, this is all you being a tattoo artist, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And at work that went on for a while. Good things happened. The person that was actually causing problems at work got fired. And that went on for a long time where things were a lot better at work. But then I started showing too much independence. My boss asked me to leave because it was after my first trip to France. I started talking about wanting to do guest spots and tattoo in France and stuff. And he's like, you got to go. I think he had abandonment issues and wanted to get rid of me before I could leave him. And then I got another job really quickly. I didn't think that I would be able to because my boss was afraid that he would call everybody in town and say, "Don't hire this person. I just fired." It's how things work sometimes in tattooing. But this trip to France was really really important. When I was in high school, I took French, and I was like, I need to speak this language. It really corresponded to an image I have of myself as an artist. And so I finally had the money after the divorce, and after I got myself on my feet again, I had saved enough money. So I go on this trip to France all by myself. And then I was just an empty shell when I got back to San Francisco. I'm like, what is there for me in San Francisco? My job, the guys I work with are jerks. I have no boyfriend. My roommate situation started to get complicated. We were friends when I moved in. By the time I moved out, we detested each other. And I was like, all I could think about is, how am I going to move to France? How am I going to move to France? And things happened really quickly. I thought it would take me 5 years to save up money and get visas and stuff like that. This crazy guy started seducing me by letters and calling me and stuff. So that was my way over there. I was going to go and live with this guy. It turns out it was a total nightmare for the first year that I was in France, and I had some really rough times, and I kept on thinking I should get myself to a meeting.
So you met some guy in France, all right, yeah, who, when you came back to the States and were figuring out how to come to France, he was your ticket over.
Yeah.
The only
But
problem,
he turned out to be schizophrenic.
yeah, I was about to say, it turns out to be this, unbelievable high cost, for moving to Paris.
Yeah, but when I look back on now I'm married with a really great guy. He has never really drank. He drank a little bit when he was 18. He'd have a beer when he would go out and stuff. And then he decided one day, yeah, I don't really like this, and he stopped. Now I can't really see myself going out with someone that drinks. It's really, and I tried to go out with people that stopped drinking. This crazy guy was an ex-drinker, but I think they have a lot of baggage, and I need to have some security. I had no security growing up, and I think I really needed security in my relationship, and that's what I have now. And I'm really, really thankful for that. I feel totally safe and loved, and feel a lot of stability, and that helped me a lot with my recovery too, having some stability at home with not somebody else who's also going through their recovery and baggage and et cetera.
How long have you been married?
I've been married 9 years.
Married for 9 years. And is this your first functional relationship?
Yes. Oh, that's what I wanted to draw a conclusion about. That is that I realized just after I'd been with him for a few years that all these guys that I'd been out with had something in common, and that was that they really, really resembled my mother. The problem of lying, drug problem, and also just being really infantile. Most of the men that I went out with were really, really infantile. And that was something familiar. I think I was attracted to crazy people. I thought they were cute and kind of touching, oh, he's so crazy. It's fun. Now I just want to be far away from crazy.
No, absolutely. So, but here's the thing. Dysfunction seeks dysfunction. And obviously being raised in the environment that you were raised in, it's not a surprise that you were attracted to people like your mother. But something had to have happened, some shift in your life. There was a turn that you made in the right direction that allowed you to heal, that allowed you to look at yourself in a different way, to love yourself in a different way, which would allow your husband to come into the picture. Do you remember what that moment was?
Yes, I think getting to France and putting this huge distance between me and my mother made a big deal. It was a big deal. So I was really angry with her, and I went through a lot of anger with her for the few years, just dealing with my paperwork, because there was some issues about my name and stuff that were difficult. But it was good to have this distance. And then this experience that I had with this psychopathic guy, it was so bad and I was in recovery, and I couldn't believe I had made this choice. And it was so bad that I think it just shocked me into not making that choice again. But at the same time, when I started hanging out with my husband that I'm with right now, there wasn't an attraction at first. So I think that's really curious to look at. But the attraction came later as I got to know him, and he's the one that said, "I love you. I want to be with you." And I was like, I don't want to be with anybody. I just got away from the crazy person, But I gave it some time, and I thought we were just going to be friends. And then for some reason, I just was like, okay, let's do this. And that was really, really the best decision, thing that I did for myself, is to choose to be with him.
Wow, there's so much of that right there that I can resonate with. And it's such a key part of your story, especially for our listeners. So many of my listeners are either in a dysfunctional relationship, trying to get over a dysfunctional relationship, keep getting into dysfunctional relationships, And it's that factor, that key factor that we talk about, that the person that we're initially attracted to, that we have that strong attraction to, is probably the people that we need to really, process that information and go, my picker doesn't really work very well, right? and in this particular situation, you met a guy that you were like, I don't know if this is the one for me, or I'm not really that into, and that should be a key indication that if someone is interested in you and you're not maybe that interested in them, and we're addicts and our picker's broken, then maybe we don't realize this, but God has actually put that person in our lives finally.
Sure, yeah.
And we're now ready. We've been through enough heartache. We've been through enough bad relationships. You're clean and sober. You're working a program. And now you can look at things differently and more objectively. And, you get to that moment where you realize, hey, wait a minute. This guy's really, really cool. And he really, really cares about me. What's wrong with me?
That's what I've been looking for, actually. The thing I'd been looking for. I always thought that I wanted to be with another artist, and that also cured me of wanting to be with another artist, this crazy guy. And, here I am 9 years later, and it's great.
Has it been an effortless 9 years?
Yes.
That's awesome. That's the key. That's the key. That's what we look for. It should never be that hard.
So we're compatible on so many levels, and he compliments me, and he's the security that I really, really needed.
So he's not a tattoo artist.
No, he has no tattoos.
He's not in recovery.
No.
So he's a normie that normally would not come into your stratosphere, right?
Even he says that when I was younger, I would never have been interested in him. I needed to be slapped around. That was another bottom that I had in recovery was, to snap out of these choices. And it's not that, I keep on getting into these situations with pervert narcissist. Do you know what that is? A narcissist.
I know what a narcissist is, but a pervert narcissist?
I guess it's a French term, but it's the narcissist. But a lot of people think narcissist is someone who's in love with themselves. But a narcissist is really like a vampire, and it's what I figured out is it's the drug, because when you meet a narcissist, you're high. They like flatter you, and it's like it is so magnetic. I love being around this person. It's another addiction.
Yes.
And they'll turn on you, and they reject you, and then they pull you back, and then they reject you. It's really a sick personality. And I've had these people come into my life numerous times, and I just realized that I am susceptible to the beginning period where you're high on this person's energy. So you got to be careful for narcissists.
Well, you're either the aggressor or the victim or the hero. You'll play one of those three roles in a dysfunctional relationship. And you meet somebody who's just charming and whimsical and magical, and they know exactly what to say, exactly what to do. This is, like you say, this compulsive, liar that, everything that they do is angled. They have ulterior motives for everything they say and everything they do, and they're trying to get something. So they live in a very vacuous world where it's just about more, me, more. And so every person they meet, they're going to do that. They're going to charm them. And then once they've gotten what they, if they have no more use for you, kind of like your husband, your first husband, where it was like, well, you're not going to party anymore. So really, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to get something out of this. So there's no reason for me to be in this.
Yep. That's what a pervert narcissist is.
Okay. So now see, new terminology is coming up left and right. That's exactly. Now, do you have a relationship with your mother today?
Yes. Yeah. She came to visit in September. We went to meetings together.
She's sober?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
She's sober, but she's got, I think she's hiding some prescription drug use that's
Got it.
worrisome.
Mm-hmm.
But that's hard to be so far away from her. But yeah.
Do you find that you still have to protect yourself from the narcissism?
I really do. I like the distance is great. I spent 2.5 days with her while I was in California, and at the end, I was like, "Get me out of here!" And I try to remind myself all the time, like, okay, she's got to you again. Recently she sold her house and without telling me and my sister, and moved into another place, and I was like, really, for 3 days, I was really in a mess about it. And I was like, she still has the ability to hurt me, but it's me. I can't let her do that, but it's still really hard. It's difficult.
Man, there's so many of us that are listening right now that can relate. Trust me, I know I can, to all of this, everything that you're talking about. And it's so important. It's so important to protect yourself against that kind of energy, especially for us that are susceptible to it. We fall into the category of the victim so many times, and are susceptible to the charms of these aggressors or these magicians, so to speak. So we have to be so cautious, even if it's our family member. My sister's like that. Me personally, my sister's like that. My mother's like that. I've had to create distances there because of that. The last interview, the interview that went live today, which is with Yancey Scott, a suggestion that he got, one of his favorites was, "Do not suffer fools kindly." And it just kind of falls into the same category, where you just can't take people, not everybody, at face value, because they're not all, they don't all come from a place of altruism or love. They come from a place of narcissism and fear. So it's just always so important to be mindful. And it's great when you understand who you are and you can accept that this is part of your character. One of your character defects is that you're susceptible to this, and to protect yourself from it. So I think for our listeners, this is another key value point to pay attention to, that when you are uncomfortable with someone, and you hadn't seen your mother in how long?
Oh, we see each other every 2 years, something like that.
Yeah, and after 2.5 days, you're ready to jump out of a window. And I know exactly what that feels like. You're like, want to jump out of a window screaming, and you're like, wow, how did I get here again? Right? And after all these years, is it ever going to end? And unfortunately, it's not. You have to constantly be cautious of that. And your father, your real dad, did you ever reconnect with him, or did he just disappear?
So I think there's a lie somewhere in there. She told me that it was a friend of hers that she spent 3 days with, and then never told him that he got her pregnant. She went back to Mr. Buick, and I just reconnected with Mr. Buick when I became a French citizen. He helped me with the birth certificate, and I spent 3 days at his house in California this last trip, and it's really, really nice, and I can see them together. They have many things that are in common. Unfortunately, my mother is not capable of staying in a relationship, and his whole family accepted me as one of the family. I really felt as a part of the family, and I even have suspicions that maybe he really is my biological dad, and that my mom's lying to everybody. It's kind of a little fantasy that I have. But in any case, he considered me his daughter, and we had a really great time, and he's a really neat guy.
That is such a wonderful part of your story. That's great. So you actually were able to salvage a family out of all this.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about possibly, you've probably been asked this before, you ever thought about doing a paternity test to see if he's your dad?
Well, I stole a hair off of his
Oh,
shirt.
wow.
And that's my plan. My plan was to do a paternity test without having to ask him to betray any kind of promise if he made a promise to my mother. But unfortunately, I read that you need to have 5 or 6 hairs, and they need to be pulled from the root
Oh,
to
wow.
get a good So I might contact one of my sisters and ask her to do a cotton swab in the mouth and see if there's DNA similarity between us.
Yeah, it's got to be.
You look at the photos that we did at the family reunion.
Uh-huh.
There's some similarities in the smile, the eyes, and of all of us, the Mr. Buick and the three sisters.
Well, man, this is one of those. I always, this is me saying HP, baby. This is one of those higher power moments where do I really even need to know? Is this, they've accepted me as family. I love this part of my life. Do I even need to go there? Is it even relevant? Maybe it is. And so you kind of like, it's one of those things where I would be like with my sponsor going, what do you think here? Right? Should I push this? There's a part of me that says, man, I'd really want to know, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
When you're a victim of 2 times in my life when I've been around pathological liars, it does something to you. It really messes you up, and you just really would like to know the truth, eventually. So I don't know. I think I'm leaning towards doing a test and being okay with the results, but just I think it's funny too. I think I might write some creative fiction about the whole DNA test and stuff. I think it's kind of silly that I stole a hair, and I think
I think it's great. I love it. I'm so glad I asked. All right, Sunny. Wow. Thank you so much. You do have a beautiful story, and I would suggest making yourself available at your meetings because people need to hear this, especially the part about your mother and these relationships. These are huge, huge factors that so many of us are still trapped in. That triangle of self-obsession.
It follows you into recovery. It surely does.
Yes. But it's one aspect that unless you make a commitment to yourself to really work on it, it remains a hindrance in you becoming a whole person. I firmly believe that, once you get through this mire of shit in your addiction to, alcohol or drug abuse, then connecting with other individuals is the next facet. It's just the next natural step is to connect with others and to find that person that God has waiting for you. I mean, I personally believe that.
Mm-hmm.
Sunny, tell us what's the best way for us to reach out to you or connect with you if we're in France and we want to go to a meeting or get a tattoo.
I have a website. Also, there is a lot of great meetings in Paris. There's a website for Alcoholics Anonymous in Paris, and there's 2 English American churches where you can go to meetings there. But you can get a hold of me at my website, www.sunnybuick.com.
Excellent. Do you know the URL to the meeting schedules?
No, if you just search for Alcoholics Anonymous in Paris, you will find it really easily.
Excellent. Okay. So as a matter of fact, guys, I think that's what I did because my wife and I went to Paris for our anniversary, and if we would have known you back then, we would have hooked up. So I did the same thing. I actually went into Google, typed in English-speaking AA meetings in France, in Paris, and boom, they pop right up. So I'll post a link on Sunny's show notes. All right, excellent. We're all set. So, Sunny, we're going to close up here. I'm going to ask you a few questions about the newcomers, and I want you to respond with insightful answers and inspiring answers you can share with our newcomers. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Was there anything keeping you or holding you back from getting clean or staying clean when you first got introduced to recovery?
I think that I needed to do every single mistake that I needed to do to get to the point where I was ready to change my life. I call it a soul crisis. I had a soul crisis, and I really wanted to do something. I had my dream job. I felt like there was no reason for me not to take a look at myself and try to change myself and be happy. I really just wanted to be happy.
Excellent. That's beautiful. I like that. The soul crisis. Mm-hmm. I can dig it. And so at what point, you touched on this, I don't know if you want to expand on it, but at what point did you have that spiritual awakening, that aha moment in recovery, probably in recovery, because I think you had an aha moment that led you to recovery, but was there a moment inside of recovery early on where you realized that you were powerless over drugs and alcohol, but for the first time, you developed the hope that now you could recover?
I just saw what my mother went through with alcohol, and I just didn't want that for myself. Powerlessness, when they talk about powerlessness in 12-step programs, I totally automatically understand that and surrender. Like, I have no problem surrendering. I'm lucky that all these horrible things happened to me when I was a kid that made me see that it was just hell. And I just saw right away that my life was working so much better without that stuff. I just had an immediate affirmation that this is the way to go.
Yes, no, that's perfect. It's beautiful. I was the same way. All those wrong turns, all those mistakes, and all of a sudden somebody's showing you the way, and you're seeing a bunch of other people that are happy, living these amazing lives, and you go, wait a minute, I think I've been doing this all wrong. And so, yes, I love that, because it does. For some of us, it's almost instantaneous. Once we connect to that positive energy, we run with it. So I'm right there with you. So number 3, do you have a favorite book that you would recommend to our newcomers?
I read The Dharma Bums by Jack Kerouac in the first 3 years, I think. And there's some really great spiritual nuggets in there. And you just keep on, when you know his story, you just keep on just going, why didn't he stop drinking? That's the problem, is the alcohol. And in this book, he reveals that he knows that it's a problem, and it's but there's no solution. Unfortunately, he died from his alcoholism. But I think sometimes we need to hear stuff like that to know what the results are, to really see what would happen if we would continue to the end with the alcohol. Sometimes that's good to read that. It's a good
reminder.
Example. Yeah.
Well, that's why we do. That's why we're here today, sharing your story. So because people need to hear this, people need to listen to this, so they know that there's hope. That's the whole point of this. There is hope. What was the name of that book again, and the author?
The Dharma Bums by Jack Kerouac.
Perfect. Got it.
And there's a recovery movement that's based on that called the Dharma Punks.
Really?
I don't know a whole lot about it, but they were punk rockers who got into Buddhism and are in recovery.
Get out. See, that's another new nugget of gold here. Would these guys be considered straight edge?
No, because
entirely different movement.
Well, maybe they're involved with the straight edge movement, but the straight edge movement's really specific to hardcore. Mm-hmm. And I think these guys were just in punk in general. They didn't go. I don't know if they go vegan and put X's on their hands and stuff like that.
Gotcha. All right. Just to clarify. All right. And so, Sunny, tell us, what is the best suggestion you have ever received?
Okay, so I was telling you about how I got sober, and then that was the end of my marriage, and I was in this purgatory period where it's very, very painful, and my sponsor suggested that I do volunteer work to get me out of myself. And I think that's a really good suggestion when we're just waiting something out and we're just totally either in self-pain, self-loathing, or like too much self-obsessed, if you get out there and you try to help others, it's like it takes all that away, and you realize that stop whining. There's people that have it worse than you, and you really don't have it that bad. And it takes your mind off of something that you're waiting. If you're waiting for a response or waiting to make a decision, it's something to fill that time that's totally useful and beneficiary and makes you feel good, makes you stop thinking about yourself, and helps a lot.
It's true. We talk about that. I mean, the 12th step is all about giving back, doing service. So regardless of whether you're in a 12-step program or not, that behavior, that selfless behavior of helping others, doing volunteer work in whatever facet that is, disconnects you from self and puts you directly in contact with your higher power. So you get that immediate high that comes from it. It just feels so good to help others, so in any facet that you can, that is a great suggestion for, helping anybody get through any crisis.
Yeah.
So number 5, if you could give our newcomers only one suggestion, what would that be?
I really think the meetings are great. When you're first getting sober, you just go as much as you can, just to absorb it all and do the steps.
Get yourself in there. Plug yourself in. Excellent. Beautiful. Great suggestion, Sunny. Wow. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
See, you didn't think you had an amazing story. It is. And it's a beautiful story. You tell it so eloquently. We have now reached the end of our show. Thanks for joining us. And as we say here in Costa Rica, pura vida.
Pura vida.
Thank you for joining us on the Share Recovery Podcast. To check out the show notes page on this interview or to thank our guests for sharing their story, go to www.thesharepodcast.com. While you're on the website, don't forget to sign up for our free newsletter to stay up to date on the latest news, podcasts, and interviews. Want to be one of our guests and share your story? Then go to our website and click on the Share Your Story button. We share our inspiring recovery stories every Tuesday, so subscribe to our show on iTunes or Stitcher Radio to get your free weekly download. We'll see you then. The opinions shared on this show reflect those of the individual speaker and not of any 12-Step Fellowship as a whole. And though we discuss 12